The Houston Astros were a lot of people's pick to win the American League West. Not that of your pal Sully's. I underestimated them again. And here to rub it in my face and to talk a little Astros all together with me, it's H-Town Wheelhouse of Locked On Astros. This is the Locked On MLB, Locked On Astros crossover.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you're looking at my lower third right there on the YouTubes, please, I'm begging you to call me Sully. Please continue to make our program your first listen, as we're available on all your free podcasting catchers. And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. So, as I hinted before, we are going to bring back a friend of the podcast, a friend of mine, even though we've actually physically never met each other, and someone who I've have sometimes disagreed with. I know it's shocking. It's shocking, but this is a true crossover, as I'm going to bring in the man who follows the first place Houston Astros and the defending American League champion Houston Astros. And the way the Astros are playing right now, they may be making it to back-to-back World Series for the first time since ever. It's Brant Chancey, but you know him as H-Town Wheelhouse. What's up, buddy? Oh, I put the wrong background on.
Oh, it's all good. How you doing, Sully? Thanks for having me on.
There's the right background. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I love talking baseball with you because you are, as we say on our show, the baseball encyclopedia. It actually amazes me the amount of baseball that you know. I've probably forgotten more. I mean, you probably know more than I could ever forget, and I appreciate you bringing me on. The Houston Astros really just seem to be one of these teams that a lot of people are really rooting against. And when they come against troubled waters, they're like, oh, see, I told you they were falling off. You know, Sully, I had this championship window for this Astros team going all the way through 2027. And I make no bones about that.
Well, okay. Well, let me just, now I have been, and you know this, and I know it as well. I have been very critical of the Astros, in the wake of everything that happened before. But I'm also, and I also have been quick to tell you that there's no amount of intellectual discussion that you can have that is going to make people not bring that up. The same way that people kept bringing up 1918 to Red Sox fans as if the trading of Babe Ruth after the 1919 season caused Calvin Schiraldi to melt down in the 1986 World Series. There is no connection between the two. You can't scream at the tides. And I always kept imploring to you, stop screaming at the tides. It's that, there's nothing you can do about it. It's there. You have to live with it. Now, that being said, the amount of scrutiny that they've had since the story broke in the spring training of 2020, and then there was the COVID season, so no one could show up for that. And then there was last year where finally, after a couple of years, people were able to actually vent about it. The team is under a tremendous microscope. And so whether or not they did anything in the years after 2017, but they did, you can certainly look at what happened in 2020. It's tough to look at anything in 2020 because that was such a weird season. But last year, they were under such a microscope that, even the biggest haters that they have would have to admit that, they're playing this on the up and up right now, and they're still a really terrific team. I'll tell you that the reason that I picked Seattle to win the West. Last year, I picked Oakland to win the West. And it wasn't because I was anti-Houston. My picks are never about who I want. I grew up a diehard Boston Red Sox fan. I didn't pick the Red Sox to make the playoffs last year or this year, thank you very much. The reason I picked Oakland last year is I thought Oakland had a better starting pitching staff. And you know what? They did. The problem is their bullpen was grotesque. And the Astros pitching staff, starting pitching staff, was comparable to Oakland's, and their bullpen was much better. I thought the improvements that Seattle made, especially the addition of Robbie Ray, they were a 90 some odd win team last year. And I did not necessarily trust the Astros starting pitching staff. And for the second straight year, I have, and you will see this right now, egg on my face. Framber Valdez has pitched like an all-star. I mean, but to be fair, Justin Verlander hadn't pitched in 2 years, and he's nearly 40. When you don't pitch for 2 years and you're almost 40, even if you're a Cy Young Award winner, it can go downhill pretty fast. So I did not expect Verlander, who pitched beautifully today, by the way. Verlander, Christian Javier has been great. Luis Garcia has been good. Urquidy has been up and down. Odorizzi is injured. But Valdez and Verlander are a 1-2 punch. And they have good bullpen depth. And they're getting, Presley has been great. Neris has been great. Rafael Montero has been unbelievable, all-star level. And they're actually getting good stuff out of Brian Abreu. So, I mean, like, they have pitching depth. But the biggest thing, and here is the biggest thing, and H-Town, don't worry. You're getting your word in. I'm just laying out the groundwork here. I really, really felt that the loss of Correa was going to be more than stats. I thought he was the keystone of that team. And I thought removing him from that team was more than just removing a talented player. And I may have overestimated that, or, mind you, underestimated the value that Jeremy Pena would have with this team. And maybe, just maybe, having that young player spark this club, and he's become one of their best offensive players, might be exactly what this team needed to and to have some of the other players step up. So that's my overview. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I think you're right on 99% of what you said. And I think you're underselling yourself a little bit on the loss of Correa, because I believe the loss of Correa may be the reason for some of the odd numbers offensively. When you break down the Astros numbers, okay, you look at, they have 64 home runs. That's fourth in the entire major league, but they're 20th in runs scored. They're 15th in RBI, where they are pretty much famine or feast this year. They have had their main players like I almost said Correa by default, like Bregman, like Tucker, like Uriel, who are not performing the way they should be performing.
Right.
With that being said, Alex Bregman is 6th in the league with runners in scoring position. And so it's been an odd year. I would say addition by subtraction is almost what you have to call Jeremy Pena. While the front office, James Click and them, were ready to secure him as the starting shortstop, a lot of people in Houston who watch this team on a regular basis were like, but he had an injury last year. He didn't even play a full season in Sugarland. He maybe needs another 200-300 at bats in AAA before he gets called up. And I remember one of his first pressers. And I try to take a lot of what I hear from the player, not on the field, but what he says off the field. And he said, I'm not here to replace anybody. I'm here to be Jeremy Pena. He took ownership. This kid, and I can give your audience some background on him real quick. When he went to the University of Maine, his dad, Geronimo Pena, who moved the family from the Dominican to the U.S. when he was 12 or 13, he took his son to the University of Maine. And he said, I'm giving you a pretty good ball player. I want you to either make, I want you to help him improve. He doesn't need to get worse. He needs to get better. And I think they did that. They untapped some things in this kid that I think the Astros have had a great eye on and have had a great ability to be able to see the brightness of this kid's future. And he has come on. I was at the game when he hit his first walk-off home run. He has taken an absolute leadership role on the field. The only beleaguering thing about him in the field is his 9 errors, but I think he's a rookie. I think there's nerves. I think there might be some chemistry things. At the end, it's all going to iron itself out. But Jeremy Pena absolutely has played the part, has won the job, and really has been their most consistent offensive weapon for the Houston Astros.
Well, I'll take one thing to task for you on that. Not that I'm claiming to know as much about the Astros as you do. Pena has been probably their most consistent all-around offensive player. But I
Right.
think what Yordan Alvarez has done with the team, I mean, he's been, at least in the games that I've seen, he's been a one-man wrecking crew.
Oh, no,
And
yeah, and that's why I said most consistent
okay,
offensively, but yes, power-wise and producing numbers like today, the bases clearing double. I
yeah,
mean, Yordan Alvarez hits an opposite field single and contributes. Yordan Alvarez, remember, was traded from the Dodgers for Josh Fields in 2017. When the Astros made that transaction, Lou now said we want Alvarez, and the Dodgers were like, the pitcher. No, there's a kid that hasn't even played for y'all. We've heard he's good. We want him. Okay, y'all can have him. And
yeah.
the rest is history.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you saw what he did. It was actually quite a game in Oakland. Verlander was fantastic the first 7 innings. He took a no hitter into the
Into 6 1/3 innings, no hitter today.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the brink. I'm surprised he hasn't thrown a no hitter yet.
Well, he's thrown a few no hitters in his career, just not this year. But how many is he supposed to have? But but the fact of the matter is Oakland, who you know they're not very good this year, but they're scrappy as always, and they took the lead, and then Alvarez cleared the bases in the 9th, and it was it's these kind of wins where the back and forth games that could really go either way are the ones that are going to be the make or break part of the season, and that's really when you think about someone who's trying to get another ring, trying to get that ring to commemorate some great memories. That's the sort of big hit that is going to make a big difference. And if you want to get a ring to commemorate a great memory, then may I recommend you go to BlueNile.com. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as the person you love with modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Guess what? Blue Nile has simple online tools that lets you choose the diamond shape. I like to pick diamond shape, size, clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect engagement ring. Each ring is a one of a kind. Hey, if you're looking for fine jewelry, and I know H-Town is always on the market for fine jewelry, but you're having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. You could wake up at 3 in the morning and say, I don't know about that bracelet. Blue Nile's got you covered. Available by phone or by chat. Do that at 3 in the morning. Do it by chat. You'll find a memorable gift at every budget. Now, make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On MLB listeners will get $50 off any purchase of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. So use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships for free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Hey, we have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey will qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks so much for your help. We're here doing the Locked On MLB, Locked On Astros crossover with Brett Chancey, a.k.a. H-Town Wheelhouse. I'm your pal Sully. You can follow me at Sully Baseball. Now, the Astros are you look at this team, and They are off to a 33-18 start. And I want to put a little preface on that. They actually started the season 6-8. Now, of course, that's like, okay, 6-8. That's hardly any moment of the season, but it wasn't a great start they got off to. And by the 23rd of April, they were 6-8. And since then, they have played 37 games and won 27 of them. That's good. That is very good.
That's
But
very good.
What's also helped them is that in that same stretch, Seattle has played 10 games under 500, and Oakland has played 12 games under 500. And the Angels, who were giving them fits early on, are in a bit of a slide. And Texas is Texas. So as much as in my opinion, as much as the Astros have been helped by the Verlanders and the Framber Valdezes of the world, they've really been helped by the fact that Seattle, what was supposedly their chief rival in this division, has wet the bed, and the Angels, who got off to a hot start, are starting to come back to earth. And eventually, unless Seattle gets their act together, or the Angels say, "Hey, we can't wait another year of Mike Trout's prime," this could be the Astros division clinched by August.
Yeah, and this is a team that still hasn't had Lance McCullers Jr. come back from another injury. Jaco DeRizzi, who was pitching out of his mind, had all the critics in Houston all over him until he had 3 or 4 starts in a row before his injury. He should be back soon. Jake Myers, a young center fielder that showed a lot of promise last year, he's nearly on his way back. So we've got guys like that are on the shelf that haven't even really scratched the surface. One of the concerns is if you look at the runs per game, the Astros are averaging 4.03 runs per game. Last year, they averaged 5.37 runs, and they scored a major league high 683 runs. I think they led all major leagues by the end of the season. And like I said, it's been famine or feast with the home run or not. And there have been a lot of, it seems like, low scoring games, but I think the low scoring is also kind of across the league because we know baseball loves to mess with the ball itself and, insert different types of baseballs. And if you get a ball from a game, there's no consistency whatsoever in their shape. But Sully, what I like about this team is the clubhouse culture that they've built, that in spite of losing Springer, in spite of losing Correa, in spite of losing a Garrett Cole or these past guys that have left, and Dallas Keuchel, who is actually DFA'd this week, wow, that guy's really fallen off. But the Houston Astros have got this staying power about them. They basically put their nose to the grindstone. Jose Altuve, since he has been back, I believe they've only lost in his starts. They've only lost 7 of the starts where he's played. And he has been one of the driving forces behind this team. Yordan Alvarez, like you mentioned, has been an absolute menace at the plate. And the guy, when he swings, it looks so effortless. I was at one of his 2 home run games this year, Sully. And when he hits the ball, you're like, is he really swinging that hard? It just doesn't look like it. But like you mentioned earlier, they're pitching Framber Valdez. We are calling the Kendall Graveman trade the Francis Montero trade because Monty is lighting it up. And, he is my favorite pitcher. Him and Hector Neris are my favorite additions. You mentioned how the Astros didn't really add much. They added this year with Neris and Montero stepping up where they didn't make a lot of improvements. They calculated so far and played their cards correctly. What I want to see, though, Sully, is come like crunch time toward the end of the season when you're playing the Yankees, who are high-powered offense, when you're playing the Blue Jays, when you're playing these teams and Boston, if they get their act together, can score a lot of runs. When you're at the end of the season and you're against the best teams, or you get to the World Series against the Brewers or the Cardinals or the Dodgers,
The Dodgers.
You've got to be able
to.
to.
The Dodgers.
I'm trying to help out the other teams, but they need to figure out how to put more runs on the board more consistently. And I believe they'll figure it out. I think the woes of Yuli and Bregman and those guys, I think they'll iron themselves out. But the big question in Houston has been, Yuli said, I stopped eating pizza and drinking sodas and I lost weight. And everybody literally is like, feed this guy some food.
Yeah.
And I'll wrap this up with this. I was talking with I was talking with a player's wife at the Sugarland Space Cowboys game. I was sitting, and we were talking about Pedro Leon and different guys. And one of the wives, she spoke only Spanish. So my friend was translating for me. She said to us, well, maybe you need to send Yuli some donuts. Maybe he'll start hitting. So we were having this interesting conversation. So, like, even the minor league people are talking about Yuli Gurriel because he's so popular, especially with the Cuban players.
Well, there's another aspect. I mean, we take a look at how well the Astros have been playing, and they have not been getting production from Gurriel, from Tucker,
Right.
from Siri, from their catchers.
Oh, their
Um,
catchers is a big black hole right now.
and you may want to take a look now. Look at their top prospect, other than Jeremy Pena, is Corey Lee. Now, Corey Lee is not off to a great start down in where is he? Is he at Sugarland?
Sugarland
Yeah,
AAA. Yeah.
but he's and Pedro Leon, their two of their top prospects, are not off to great starts there, but they're both undeniably talented players, and you wonder if sometimes having a young player come up and give the team a little bit of a spark, or maybe light a fire under Maldonado's ass or whoever else is not hitting well in the major league level, may just be the jolt that they need. I mean, am I crazy for thinking that?
No, not at all. And I actually spoke with Corey Lee last night before the game, to where I was talking to him about possibly getting him on the show. And he hit a ball into right field and he extended a single into a double. The kid's got speed. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. I think he's does great behind the plate, but it's hitting. Now, when he hits and he barrels the ball, he hits for power. Pedro Leon, the highest rated arm in the major leagues at 80, and one of the most lethal bats when he can barrel that ball. There's also we have a kid with the last name Berryhill down in Corpus who's actually making a name for himself. So the Astros have prospects, but I don't know that bringing up a prospect is the right tone to set right now because they're not exactly hitting the cover off the ball. I think Corey Lee's time will come. You don't want to bring a player up that is a prospect and have him come up and struggle and fail and have to send him back down. We see sometimes it has a negative residual effect on a prospect. With that being said, Maldonado is that mainstay. I think Castro would be the odd man out. But
Mhm.
Corey Lee, Hunter Brown, I think will be a late season call up. I don't think we see Pedro Leon until 2023 because I'm telling you right now, Pedro Leon, Jake Myers will be fighting for the starting center field position in 2023 for the Houston Astros.
Yeah. Well, all these are just suggestions on how to kind of like tinker with the engine a little bit. So we
I
see the
think
running.
I think the lineup needs to be flipped a little bit. I think
Yeah.
orders need to change. And Dusty does that. But one of the things we've learned to do is we've learned to love Dusty Baker. We've learned to trust Dusty Baker, and that's been phenomenal.
Well, let me get in that a little bit, but I
Yeah.
do think that it is important to know that you've got to sometimes, even if it's running right, you got to tinker with the lineup, just like you have to tinker with your engine. Like when I go to rockauto.com, with the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts in their computer, choosing the only brands that the warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find a solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you will ever need are at rockauto.com. Hey, you started H-Town Wheelhouse guests here. I'm your pal Sully. This is the Locked On MLB, Locked On Astros crossover. I'm sitting in Pasadena, California, overlooking the historic Rose Bowl right outside that window there. You are in the Astros cave underneath Wayne Manor in Gotham City. Now, you alluded to Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker is the main reason why I wanted the Astros to win the World Series last year. And look, at a lot of people can nitpick and point out the fact that Dusty is a unorthodox strategy manager. I know my father, may he rest in peace. Anytime I brought up Dusty Baker's name, he would shudder and remember how he managed Game 6 of the 2002 World Series. But the fact of the matter is, he's taken the Giants to the World Series. He's taken the Cubs to one win away from the World Series. He took the Reds to the playoffs in 3 out of 4 seasons. He took the Nationals to the playoffs both years he managed there. And he is in the short list of managers who have managed an American League and National League team to the World Series. And he's in the top 11 all-time in career wins. He may even have moved to the top 10 at this point. He has done everything you could ever ask. And when you talk about the clubhouse culture, and you also think about the turmoil that was going on in this team, and handing the reins over to Dusty, and the team hasn't lost a beat, that it's impossible, I think, to just look at the win-loss record and to understand what Dusty has meant to this team. Tell me a little bit about what he has meant to the Houston fan base, especially as he has them once again in the short list of, when you think about the legit pennant contenders. I still think the Yankees, I still think Tampa and Toronto. I don't quite put the White Sox or the Twins up there yet, but I certainly think the Astros have as good a chance as any team to win the American League pennant. And I think no small part of that is because of Dusty.
Yeah, Dusty Baker was brought in here calculated for a reason. A lot of people thought he was just brought in here simply because of the scandal, and that would be not giving credit to the front office that the Astros have or giving credit to Dusty Baker. And I know if you watch our show or if you watch any episodes, I will go out and I will out myself here and say that I was a little hypercritical of Dusty after being used to AJ Hinch, and even after winning in 2017 and pulling Greinke too soon in 2019, it seemed like I was used to a certain way of managing. But anytime I'm critical of Dusty, I'm reminded there were times when AJ Hinch would do things with the lineup that I didn't trust. But for a manager to take 5 different teams to the playoffs, for a manager to have as many wins as he has and be respected as he is, when you hear the players endorse Dusty, that's all the approval I need. It doesn't matter what fans say about how much he uses a pitcher, takes him out, but he has actually managed this team quite well. I know he managed Barry Bonds, the controversy there well, but from players that we've had on our show, Clay Hensley, who actually won a World Series with the Giants, he was a local kid. He talked all the time about how Dusty is the ultimate players manager. The players respect him. The players love him. Heck, we love him on the show. I love getting sound bites from Dusty. You know, the very first quote he said at spring training was, he kind of laughed. He goes, this is the first time I've worn pants since November. And I'm like, only Dusty Baker. But he deserves a title. And this year, if this team can do it, this will be the team that not everybody pegged as the eventual world champion, and the hurdles he would have had to overcome. He's had to manage injuries. He has to manage innings with Justin Verlander, going to a 6-man rotation that Justin Verlander did not want, that they still did. And so at the end of the day, Dusty has meant a ton to this team. With him, we got Reggie Jackson in the front office doing community stuff.
Which is still weird.
Yeah, it is.
He's
but
not
I'm telling
from
you,
Houston. He never played for
he's
Houston.
not. But let me tell you, he has embraced his role. He has been embraced by the players. But to see Dusty Baker talking with Craig Biggio, talking with Jeff Bagwell, just talking with the players, he genuinely loves the players. I had Joey Luperfido on, 7th-round pick for the Astros from Duke, and Dusty Baker said, "Hey kid, what position do you play?" He said, "Center field." He goes, "You're going to right field." And then afterwards, he came down the steps. He made a diving stab out in right field. He said, "I got to the bottom of the steps." Dusty looked at me and he said, "You're a blankety blank center fielder. I should have put you in center field." And so he said Dusty gave him a big hug. And he said, "I fell in love with this guy. He was so welcoming. He made it so comfortable. Where I was nervous around Jordan, Dusty made me feel at home." So I've heard it from minor leaguers myself and the players that it's a win-win. I think when he leaves, it will be appropriate that when he leaves at the right time, Joe Espada will definitely slide into the
Right,
head
right.
coaching position. And that's why he stayed so long.
You know, it's interesting. There are three managers right now who have their teams in position for a playoff spot, and there are three managers who have been multiple manager of the years for different organizations and have taken multiple teams to the playoffs, and yet none of them have that World Series ring. And
Wow.
a World Series ring for Dusty, for Buck Showalter, or for Bob Melvin would put them in a conversation for a the trip to the Hall of Fame. And there's part of me would love to see the Astros play either the Padres or the Mets in the World Series just to see that matchup of those three super respected managers.
Yeah.
And by the way, Bob Melvin played with Dusty when Dusty was the hitting coach for the Giants, and Bob Melvin, who went to my rival high school
Wow.
in
There
Northern
you go.
California. He's a little bit older than me, but yeah, he went to my rival high school, and he's a native of Palo Alto, California. And but yeah, I would love to see that. And I just Dusty's. I think because he was not he rooting from day to day drives you crazy. I saw what it did to my dad. I saw what it did to my friends who are Cub fans. I saw what it did to my friends who are Reds fans. The day to day decisions of Dusty are unorthodox, but I kind of equate it to there are some film directors who were did very unorthodox things and when they were directing a movie, and their films were sometimes a little strange or off the wall and their techniques were strange, but the result was a great movie. And if the result is getting into the postseason and getting yourself a chance to win, um, Joe Torre made some weird decisions. Terry Francona made some weird decisions. Tom Lasorda made some devastatingly weird decisions. Every great manager
Oh, I mean,
has made dumb decisions along the way. But the thing I was
yeah.
going to say to you was that this is not the Astros team that everybody in their moose was picking to win it all. And if this is the team that Dusty finally wins with, it would be kind of similar to like the 2 years that La Russa won with St. Louis. The '06 Cardinal team actually was barely good in the regular season. They won like 84 games, I think it was. It was astonishingly low total, but they beat a better Padres team and they upset the Mets. And there we go. But and then 2011, where they snuck into the postseason because the Braves wet the bed and then somehow beat a Philadelphia team they had no business being on the same field with. Maybe sometimes that happens, that the team that isn't the best team, the Braves team that won in 95 wasn't the best Braves team.
No,
The best Braves team
no.
was 93.
Oh yeah, I remember those teams. Those were, I mean, those just the litany of pitchers and offense that they offered you. And I'll say this: if Dusty Baker doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, and because the Astros failed to win the World Series, and that's the reason, like Dusty Baker should be in the Hall of Fame
Anyway, yeah.
regardless
Yeah.
whether he wins a ring. He has earned it, and not just earned it; he's done it with distinction. He's done it with class. And in the day and time that we live in, where so many people are getting caught up in so much controversy, Dusty Baker's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
He is one of the
Controversy
guys.
free.
The
Controversy
Hall of
free.
Fame should be also, if it's a true testament to character, he should be your poster child.
Yeah.
Dusty Baker has done everything right with grace. And I don't know if you noticed during spring training, did you see where he got to exchange a lineup card with his son?
Yeah, I
And
did.
his son actually got the walk-off hit in that game and beat Dusty Baker in that spring training game. I was like, that is so poetic.
Well, you saw what happened at the end of the game when they got the game-winning hit, and then JT Snow came in, ran him, and picked him up, and he took him off the field.
I love
Nothing
it.
ages me more than the fact that little
JT
boy
Snow.
from the 2002
Yeah,
World Series is now a professional baseball player.
that's
That's when
insane.
well, look at I did not pick. I had high hopes for Seattle, and so
I
far
think
I
you
look
know
at
we thought that was going to be our competition. We really did, Sully.
yeah,
I was like, it's going to be us and the Mariners, the Angels, and then the Angels showed up, and we're like, oh baby, it's the Angels. And then what happened to Seattle? And I mean, they even had the whole montage at the beginning of the year, the angry player letter, and we're going to do this, see us rise. And I'm like, I don't know, y'all kind of rise and fall.
yeah. I mean, so far it's low tide. Now, of course, there's still 2/3 of a season left,
You're right,
and
it's not over.
the last two times a we've had a 162 game season. The Astros were in both of those World Series, and the teams that beat the Astros in those two World Series had losing records at this point in the season.
You are correct. So it's
So,
never over. You still got to put in the work.
Seattle is a team with talent. And that being said, right now, when you consider that not everything has gone the Astros' way, and they're still playing at this clip, um, it's a testament to Dusty. I also think it's a testament to Verlander and Valdez, and a big testament to Pena, who had a huge job. But you were right. The quote he had is the right quote to have, which is his job is not to replace Carlos Correa. His job is to make sure that shortstop is in a hole. And by doing that and not trying to be the next Correa, uh, I think that you're seeing the Astros, once they start hitting, once Gurriel starts hitting, once they get more productive from their outfield, this I think this is going to be a 97 98 win team. Maybe a little more if there are again, it may be more necessarily if the Astros are better, but if there are a bunch of teams in the American League who'd say F this, we're just going to put a bad team on the field. But either way, I think I underestimate this Astros team, and so far so good.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with that. I just know that watching this team day in and day out, they still haven't achieved what they can offensively on a consistent basis. The pitching is held up fine. We always talk about the '05 team a lot around here because that was one of the best pitching staffs ever assembled in Houston, and it was the team that qualified for a World Series with the lowest team average of all time, I believe. And I don't know if that's still, I don't know if anyone's challenged that, but they were pretty bad offense. And if that '05 team had this offense, there's no way the White Sox win a single game
No.
in '05. So there is so much more to be desired. But we in Houston, I can tell you, we realize how spoiled we've been in what we call the golden era of Astros baseball. And I think it's going to live on. Mark my words. I think in 2027, we can still have a podcast talking about the Astros contending for an ALCS title and possible World Series.
Well, if we're still doing this podcast by then, we better sell a lot of Blue Nile. So hey, Brett Chancey, aka H-Town Wheelhouse, tell people where they can listen to the Locked On Astros podcast.
So they can go to YouTube and check out Locked On Astros. They can
You've been
check
killing
out.
it on YouTube. You've been absolutely killing
Appreciate
it
it.
on YouTube.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We pride ourselves in putting together a great show. And what helps us is we have amazing listeners. We have smart listeners. We have the best. We even have listeners from other clubs that
maybe.
comment us. Well, I know. I'm a little biased, but I even had a Mariners guy chime in and say, I love your show. I watch y'all. Okay, very cool. But you can go to literally Instagram, Facebook, anywhere. Check out Locked On Astros. You can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and Instagram, and Astros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're always positive, always Stros. And don't forget my co-host, Eric Heisman. Eric Talks Stros at Twitter and Instagram as well.
I actually met Eric before I met you. I had Eric.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But did Eric send you baseball cards?
No, we did not. So there you go, Eric. You missed the boat. You can find us at Locked On MLB Pod. Same handle on Instagram. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Checking out the defending American League champion Houston Astros, who are now doing it without controversy and with all class of the managerial reigns. This has been a Locked On Astros, Locked On MLB crossover. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, here on the second day of June, 2022. Please call me Sully.